Hello and welcome to What's in the Night Sky for April 2021. I'm Hayley, and this month I'm going to talk about the Lyrids meteor shower, planets visible in the early morning and the early evening. We're going to continue our tour of the moon from day 8. There's a super full moon this month, and our constellation of the month is Ursa Major. Let's begin by continuing our tour of the moon. Over the last couple of months, we've talked about the first week or so of the moon's cycle after new. So we're going to start this time on day 8. New moon in April occurs on the 12th. So day 8 is the 20th of April. And we can see the moon here in Cancer. And we're about 10 o'clock in the evening at the moment. So the sky is nice and dark, or fairly dark, so that we can get a really good view of the moon. So if we have a look at the moon at around day 8, you can see that around half of the near side is illuminated, and we've already uncovered quite a lot of the prominent lunar seas over the last week. If we continue, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. If we continue into day 9, you can see that we've now completely uncovered the Apennine mountain range, and we've got this huge crater coming into view, and that crater is the Copernicus crater. And Copernicus is a great crater to look out for with the naked eye. It's very prominent, and it has this fantastic ray system of ejected material that's been thrown out during the impact. And if you have a look at it while it's on the terminator line, the line between dark and light on the moon, that may exaggerate some of the features, as we've talked about before. You can have a go at it with binoculars or a small telescope as well. And if I go forward by one more day, you can see that crater is completely visible now. We've also started to uncovered most of this sea here, which is the Mare Imbrium, or Sea of Showers. So you should be able to easily spot this sea with your naked eye. If you have a pair of binoculars, you can have a go at this crater here. And this crater is quite different to the crater we just talked about, Copernicus. This one's called Plato, and it's what's known as a dark crater. So it has a dark floor. So see if you can pick that out of the edge of the Sea of Showers. Moving on a little more, and I should say we've now also uncovered the Tycho crater, which is arguably the most spectacular crater on the moon, because it has another one of these fantastic ray systems, and you can see rays of ejected material going a long way over the surface of the moon. We've also started to uncover the Kepler crater now. So close to Copernicus, we have another ray crater, the Kepler crater. The crater itself is quite small, but it has another one of these ray systems. So it's quite a good one to look out for, especially if you have a pair of binoculars to train on it as well. And we can also see the Sea of Cold up here is mostly uncovered now. And I'm just going to go one more day so we can see we've now got the Copernicus crater, the Kepler crater, the Tycho crater. So 3 very bright craters to have a look out for. All 3 of these you should be able to spot with your naked eye if you've got good vision, certainly with a pair of binoculars. As I said, we've got the Sea of Showers, or Mare Imbrium, and you might like to look out for this little bit that's punched out of the edge of the Sea of Showers, and that's known as the Bay of Rainbows. And finally, you can have a go at this crater here, which is just emerged from the terminator, and that crater is called Aristarchus, and that is actually one of the brightest features on the moon. So have a go at spotting that one as well. I'm just going to take you through now some interesting things that are happening this month. And I'm going to start with the early morning. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes about things that are good for those of you who are early risers and like to get up nice and early in the morning. The first one is on the 6th, and you want to be looking at around an hour before sunrise. So I'm just going to go to 5:30 as a bit of a guess. And looking towards the southeast, and you can see we have the crescent moon, the planet Saturn and the planet Jupiter forming a triangle here. So a really nice grouping of 2 planets and the moon that you can look out for. A nice photo opportunity there as well, early in the morning. So if you happen to be up at that time and you have a clear sky, then do look out for these 3 in the southeastern sky. If we go to the 7th, and we'll need to go a bit later on the 7th, so much trickier on the 7th, because you can see that the sky is really starting to brighten ahead of the sun rising. But again, we've got these 3 forming a triangle in the morning on the 7th as well. I'm going to go to the 12th now, still in the morning, and we're going to take a look at the planet Jupiter. And this one is one for those of you that have access to a telescope. And I'm going to go to 5:15 in the morning, taking a look at Jupiter. And this month Jupiter undergoes an equinox, and that leads to some interesting effects for us here on the Earth, some interesting visual effects. And one of those is that we get to see the shadow of the moon Io pass over the moon Callisto. So an eclipse of Callisto happens, and you can see here we've got the planet Jupiter and 1, 2, 3, 4 Galilean moons. So you'll be able to pick out the disk of Jupiter and those 4 moons with any small telescope. And if we just focus our attention on Callisto, I'm just going to go in a little bit, and I'm going to start time moving now, and the eclipse should begin at around 5:22. And what you're looking for is the moon Callisto appearing to dim as the shadow of Io passes over it. So see if you can spot that when I speed up the time here. There we go, we can see the shadow coming across now and leaving at the opposite side, so finishing at around 20 to 6. So beginning around 20 past 5 and lasting for around 20 minutes until around 20 to 6, we'll see that eclipse of Callisto. So one for those of you with a telescope who like to get up nice and early in the morning. Let's have a look into the evenings now. For those of you that don't like getting up early in the morning, we've got a few interesting things happening in the evenings for the second half of the month. I'm going to start with the 15th, and I'm going to go to around 9:30 on the 15th, and I'm just going to swing us around to the west. And if you can spot the asterism of Orion's belt, then that should lead you nicely to the constellation of Taurus the Bull. And you can see that the crescent moon is in Taurus the Bull on the 15th, and along with the Pleiades star cluster and the Hyades as well, this triangular shape of stars here forming the bull's head. So you've got the Hyades, the crescent moon and the Pleiades all together on the evening of the 15th of April. If we stay in the evening and go to the 17th of April, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, and so we're still in this area in the west. We've got the constellation of Orion, very prominent here, the constellation of Taurus, and this time the crescent moon has moved up to join the planet Mars. So you can have a go at spotting the moon and Mars together. You can have a go at those with a pair of binoculars as well if you have them handy. If we go to the night of the 21st of April now, and we have the Lyrids meteor shower, and that actually peaks in the daytime on the 22nd of April. So if you want to observe around the peak, you can observe the evening, evening of the 21st, morning of the 22nd, or the evening of the 22nd, morning of the 23rd. And the Lyrids meteor shower is so named for the constellation that it appears to originate from, which is the constellation of Lyra. And if we just pop meteor showers on, you can see over here in the constellation of Lyra, we have the Lyrids. Now, Lyra has the very bright star Vega, so you can see if you can locate Vega to help you locate the constellation, and the peak of the meteor shower is close to that. And you can see here, evening of the 21st, we're looking towards the north or the northeast. And as always with meteor showers, the best thing to do is to get out after the moon has set if possible, and after midnight is best, and in the darkest location that you can find. The Lyrids meteor shower has a fairly modest peak, so you might be able to catch around 10 meteors per hour if you're lucky. And the radiant, so Lyra, rises about 9 o'clock, so you definitely want to be observing after 9 o'clock, but as I say, later is better. So if we can go after midnight, you can see it's much higher as we go later, and that's why it's better to observe later if you can. And the Lyrids meteors originate from comet Thatcher, which last came into our solar system, or into the inner solar system rather, in the year 1861, and it has an orbital period of around 400 years, I think, so we won't be expecting that one again for a while, but every year when the Earth passes through the debris stream of the comet, the debris that was left behind by the comet, we get the meteor shower. So moving on now to the 25th, and we're looking in the very early evening again, and this is a really tricky one. So we've got a conjunction between Mercury and Venus, and they are going to be separated by just more than a degree, so really close together in the evening sky. Just as the sun is setting, or as soon as the sun has set, take a look for Mercury and Venus in the evening twilight. So you can see them here, and you will need a nice flat horizon to be able to see them, because they'll be low, and you just want to look in that direction, and you'll spot Venus first because it's brighter, wait for it to pop out of the evening twilight, and then have a look for Mercury as well. Be careful, make sure that you're not looking at the sun, and you are waiting until the sun has set before you try to spot these two, but it is a good chance to see these two together, and also Venus can help you to pick out Mercury. The week following this is a good time actually to look for Mercury, because it's reasonably well placed for observing, around the time just straight after sunset, looking for the planet Mercury. So if we move to the 26th now, and you can in fact see, as we go through that last week, as I said, Mercury gets higher and higher and better placed for observing as we go through the last week of April. So really good chance to spot Mercury. And you can observe later after the sun has set, which gives you a better opportunity to see it, because the sky is getting darker and you're more able to pick it out of that twilight. So going to the 26th now. 26th. And we have an opportunity to see Mars and the open cluster M35 in the evening on the 26th. So you can see here, looking towards the west, we're just before 11 o'clock here, and you can see Mars down by the foot of one of the twins of Gemini. And if we just zoom in a bit, you can see that it's hanging out next to this cluster here, which is M35, Messier 35, or the Shoebuckle cluster. And it's an open cluster of stars. You can have a go at it with a pair of binoculars, and you'll see some of the stars, some of the brighter ones. If you have a small telescope, then you'll see even more stars. So a good opportunity to have a look for Mars and the open cluster M35 as a little bonus. Mars is actually better for observing at the beginning of the month rather than the end of the month, just because it's getting lower and it's dimming as the month goes on. But as you can see here, we're at the 26th. You can still certainly look out for Mars towards the end of April. And our final thing for the evening hours in April is the full moon, which occurs on the 27th. And this month it is what's known as a supermoon. And a supermoon occurs when the full moon falls when the moon is also near to its closest point to us in its orbit. And that means it appears brighter than usual and larger than usual. And in fact, this is the first of 3 supermoons all in a row that happen in 2021. So April, May and June are all supermoon months, so lots of supermoons to look out for coming up. And if you observe the full moon when it's low to the horizon as well, then that effect of it looking even larger will be exaggerated even more due to what's known as the moon illusion. Let's finish with our constellation of the month this month, which is Ursa Major, or the Great Bear. Perhaps the most recognisable constellation in the northern sky is Ursa Major. So I'm just going to turn us around so we can see it the right way up. So we have this very familiar asterism of the Big Dipper, or the Plough as it's sometimes known. And Ursa Major means the Great Bear, and is the largest northern constellation, and it's a great starting point when you're learning to navigate the night sky. And we've talked before about using the Big Dipper as pointer stars to find various things in the night sky. So we can use these 2 stars in the Big Dipper, draw a line from them to locate Polaris, the North Star in Ursa Minor. We can also use the handle or the tail of the bear and do follow the arc to Arcturus, the brightest star in Boötes. And we can go further, follow the arc even further, all the way down here, and that takes us to Spica, the brightest star in Virgo as well. And there's lots more you can do with using Ursa Major or the Big Dipper as a starting point. You can also use it to find Cassiopeia, for example, and others. There are lots of tales associated with Ursa Major. For the ancient Greeks, Ursa Major represented the sea nymph Callisto, and Callisto and Zeus, who was the king of the gods, had a son, Arcas. And Hera, the wife of Zeus, was not very happy about this, and she turned Callisto into a bear and banished her into the forest. One day, years later, 15 years later, I think, Arcas was out hunting in the forest, and he came across his mother as a bear, but he didn't know she was a bear, and he drew his spear and was about to attack her. Zeus saw this, decided he needed to intervene. He sent a great whirlwind, which blew them both into the heavens, where Callisto became Ursa Major and Arcas became Ursa Minor, the little bear. Or in some versions of the story, Arcas became Boötes, the herdsman. So it depends where you're getting your information from. The Romans called the constellation the 7 plough oxen. In China, Japan and Korea, the plough is known as a ladle. In Hindu legend, the 7 brightest stars represent 7 sages. Native American legend says the bowl of the Big Dipper is the bear, and the handle stars are warriors chasing the bear. And there are many, many other tales about Ursa Major from all around the world, leading back all the way to ancient times. So let's take the art off, and I just want to show you one thing to look out for in the constellation of Ursa Major. And if we go to the 2nd star in the handle of the plough, this one here, Mizar, and even before I zoom in, you might be able to see that it's actually not one star, but a pair of stars. So let's zoom in and have a look. So the pair of stars is called Mizar and Alcor, and it's one of the most famous double stars in the night sky. You should be able to distinguish the two of them with your naked eye. If you've got reasonable eyesight, you're in a reasonably dark site, you should be able to see that there's two stars here. If you're struggling, you can have a go with a pair of binoculars, and they should be quite easy with a pair of binoculars. Often referred to as the horse and rider, and it's actually a really complicated system that's revealed its secrets over many years. So it was discovered in the 1600s and 1800s that Mizar itself is actually a pair of two binary stars, so 4 stars altogether. And then in 2009, it was discovered that Alcor itself is also a binary system and is gravitationally bound to the Mizar system. So you actually, when you look at these two stars, you're seeing what is in fact a 6-star system, which is quite amazing, really, and a system that astronomers have been looking at for hundreds of years and has been testing the limits of technology for hundreds of years. So that brings me to the end of our night sky tour for April 2021, and as always, I'll be back next month to talk about what you can see in May.